Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this Facebook live chat. I am WPTV multimedia journalist Josh Navarro, and we're here to talk about cruises. When are they going to set sail? What can we expect once they do? We're going to be answering all of your questions. So be sure to also type in your questions that you may have and tell us the last time you probably went on a cruise and where. And if you were able to go on a cruise today, would you do it? But without further ado, please welcome Michelle Fee, CEO and founder of Cruise Planners. Good afternoon, Michelle. Thank you so much for taking time today.
Hey, Josh, how are you? Nice to be on your station.
Doing well, doing well. So tell us a little bit about, a lot of people are waiting to go back on cruises. Hotels are back open, restaurants are back open. You can go to theme parks now. When will cruises? What's the timeline? What are you hearing through the pipeline?
Well, I think that's the $64,000 question. I mean, at this point, unfortunately, the cruise industry is waiting to hear back from the CDC. Over this past year, the cruise lines have not been sitting idle. They've kind of been singled out, in my humble opinion, and it would be nice if the CDC would set a date and say, okay, as of this date, you will be able to sail out of a U.S. port. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten the green light yet. So, the cruise industry is just waiting. As soon as that happens, believe me, they are ready. They've been putting time and effort into, making sure, again, the number one priority is that their crew and their passengers remain safe while sailing.
Right on. And what's going to be like the new normal? Are people going to be required to wear masks, possibly show if they got the vaccine or not? Social distancing. What's going to be, I guess, in theory, what we can all expect once we board on ship once it's open?
Right. So this past year, like I said, the cruise lines have not been sitting idly. They've been creating a healthy sales panel to make sure that once the passenger does board the ship, that they do have all the protocols in place. Safety on board is their number one priority. Again, first and foremost, all the crew members, from what we hear, will be vaccinated. So that's a good thing because that will immediately, help with herd immunity. Masks, we're wearing them in our everyday lives, right? We're wearing them to grocery stores, workplaces, school, wherever we're going. You're going to have to, on the onset of cruising, probably wear a mask for the time being. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to have to wear a mask when you, sit down for dinner as you do here. We're not sure yet, if you're going to need a mask in a pool or a hot tub or, walking around the outside, on a ship. We're not exactly sure what's going to happen there, but in the theaters, families will sit together, but there will be lots of empty rows surrounding them. And then I always laugh because the number one question is, what about the buffet? Is the buffet going away? And the answer is no, the buffet is not going away. I'll bet it's going to be a little differently. So you're not going to be able to touch the food or use a utensil. The crew member will be back behind the counter. They will pile your plates as high as you'd like. Great thing is they're vaccinated. They will have masks. They will be and have the utmost safety for the passengers on board. There will be enhanced screening. So before you leave your home, you're going to have a COVID test and bring a negative result. When you get to pier side, they will test you again and make sure you have a negative result. And then, of course, a requirement of getting back into the U.S. if you go into international waters is then to have another test, which they'll have on board ships when you come back into the U.S. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes, but this is all to help mitigate that risk and keep you as safe as possible.
You did touch on the question I wanted to ask about the buffets and all the food service, because a lot of people look forward to the buffets. Is it going to depend? What are you hearing? Is it going to depend on which cruise line, how they're going to operate, or is it basically across the board? Sitting like in a dining room, dining restaurant setting where the waiter comes to your table back and forth, or is it just them serving you the food like down the line of a school cafeteria line, if you will?
So you'll get the same dining experience that you would have a year ago or a year from now. It's all going to be the same dining experience. So if you're sitting down in a restaurant, you will get served as you do here stateside. But when you go to the buffet, obviously that is probably going to be the only food venue that's a little bit affected.
What about cleaning? What about making sure all the high touch places are cleaned on a regular basis? What are you hearing through the pipeline about that?
So just like it always was, I don't know if you've ever been on board a ship, but it's probably one of the cleanest modes of transportation I've ever been on. Obviously, they are going to up it to another level. I know there's new cleaning products that if you put them on certain areas, they last, 24 to 48 hours. So even though multiple people touch it, they don't leave behind any germs. It kills the germs on touch. So there's some high-tech things that are going on. Most cruise lines will have like a bracelet, or they call it a tracelet. So it kind of looks like an Apple Watch, and it will trace you as you're going around the ship. So if in fact you do get COVID, it knows who you've been in contact with, again, mitigating that risk of spread. And there is enhanced medical resources on board as well. So if a passenger happens to get COVID, they will remove the passenger from that general public in a quarantined area that will keep everyone safe. A year ago, I know we saw things on the news that, hazmat suits, cruise ships, they just didn't know much about COVID. No one did. But a year later, thankfully, we know a lot more, and they will make sure that when, passengers board their ships, that they are in one of the safest places they can be.
All right, right on, Michelle. Michelle, we do have a question. We have a comment right here. Teresa Leclerc, cruising is fantastic, and we are ready. Let's get these ships sailing soon. So everybody's eager. It's like spring break is right now. A lot of people would go on cruise ships. But also, I'd like to pull up this question from Sandy Lawrence. Will pools and hot tubs be open?
From what we're hearing, yes. I just don't know whether you're going to need a mask of sorts to be in them. But from what we're hearing at this point, yes. And by the way, cruising is happening in Europe already. And so the protocols are all put in place. And so the good news is, they're working through them, and they have worked extremely well, as there's not been, knock wood, an outbreak on a cruise ship since all these protocols have been put in place.
What is the difference between the U.S. and the European? What are things they're doing over there different than what we're doing over here for them to go on these cruises now that you've mentioned?
Well, the biggest thing is their CDC, I don't know what they're called over in Europe, is allowing cruising to happen, where over here it's the CDC that's, hasn't quite yet come to the table and given the green light for us to sail out of a U.S. port.
Okay, we have another question. Joanne West Garther, please discuss shore excursions. Will that still be allowed when you go travel to different parts of the country? What are you hearing about that?
So we're hearing that there's going to be these little bubbles on the onset of cruising. So what they're going to do is they're going to contain it and control it. So when you get off in a particular destination, they will bring you on, a bus or one form of transportation, and they will take you on the shore excursions. Now, we've heard that there are some cruise lines that 100% of the passengers are going to be vaccinated. So they're not exactly sure, like if that happens and others follow when they get to those ports of call. If you're vaccinated, can you go off and walk the streets or, jump in a taxi and do your own thing? So those are still some of the little details that, they're still working out.
Okay, and there's another viewer question here where is it? I lost my place here. Oh, Teresa, there we go. Should I book my cruise now?
You should book your cruise right now, because I'm going to tell you why. It's called supply and demand. And when the cruise lines get the green light, they're not going to turn on a switch and all of their ships are going to be put back in the water and in place and ready to welcome passengers. It takes about 60 to 90 days per ship to get it ready for passengers to board it. So, when they, on the onset, each cruise line might have 1 or 2 ships that are ready to go. And then subsequently after, each month, they'll add 2 to 3 ships until the full fleets are all sailing, all cylinders go. And I could tell you that's a day that we will be excited when we hear that. But it won't go from 0 ships to 100 ships overnight. It's going to be gradual. The thing is, there's going to be limited capacity. So on the onset of cruising, they're not going to fill the ships 100%. They're going to be very limited. So again, the supply and the demand. I can tell you that 2022 is booking solidly. We are well ahead of where we were when we were going from 18 into 19 and 19 into 20. So if you're thinking about traveling next year, book it now. I think some of the seasonal destinations like Alaska and Europe, if you think about it, we're losing. Most cruise lines have canceled cruises up until July 31st. And so, people haven't been able to cruise for almost a year and a half. So we call this revenge travel, is where they're taking all their vacation funds, and there's, could be up to 3 years. If you haven't gone to Alaska and there's 3 years of pent up demand, can you imagine what it's going to, and how quickly it's going to sell out for 2022? It's going to sell out real quickly. So I always say, book it now. If rates go down, you're protected. A lot of the cancellation penalties are very flexible at this point. But
right.
once things get back to normal, those cancellation penalties go back to what they were before. So to me, green light for all of you is pick up your phone and call your travel advisor.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions from viewers asking, shall I book a cruise now? Shall I call my travel agent right now? And I guess you did answer that question, because they are going to start filling up fast, aren't they?
And they are, and they need to be aware that there's a lot of protocols and restrictions that are required to travel, not just on the cruises, but on the air travel as well. And so if you call your travel advisor, they can help guide you through this to make sure that you're going to have the right paperwork and all the things that you need to, when you get to and are able to travel to your favorite destination again.
Vicky Garcia asks, should I book through a travel agent or direct with the cruise line?
Do not book direct. Again, the travel advisors are up to key. They know exactly what you need to board the ship, as well as, get into different countries. There's Greece, for instance. Greece has opened up to all travelers, but you have to be vaccinated. And, how do you show proof? What do you need? So call your travel advisor, because that travel advisor can absolutely help you with all of the things that there's so many websites out there with such misleading information. So you want to make sure you have the right information before you travel.
All right. We did have a question about kids and children camps on cruise lines. Where they still offer those types of programs? What are you hearing through the pipeline so far?
So I suspect at some point, yes. I'm not exactly sure when cruising begins, if that's going to happen. That is not something that we've had, emailed to us, or, we've been able to read up on. So not quite sure, but if you're looking to plan a trip for next year or later this year, absolutely. I'm pretty positive they will be open.
Now, I know a lot of cruise lines have a lot of shows. Would they still be entertainment on the ships?
There'll absolutely be entertainment. Obviously, cruise lines don't want you to have a lesser experience. So when you board a ship, they want that same experience that you would have had pre-COVID. So when you board again, I said, when you're in the theater watching a show, on the onset of cruising, they're going to have a lesser capacity. So there's less people on board, and, social distancing. So your family will sit in a row, and then maybe the row behind you will be empty. And I've also been told that if they have to do a third show, they'll do a third show, but they will make sure that the experience on board is just as great as it was pre-COVID.
All right. Teresa says, I'm ready for a revenge vacation. This is so informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's why we're here for. So if you guys have any other questions, continue to type them in. If I'm not ready to go on a cruise, where else can I go? Someone is asking that on the thread.
Right now it's pretty limited. I will tell you the hot spots are, warm vacations at this point. I know everybody up north is clamoring to get away, but for us here in Florida, Mexico and Caribbean, those are probably the top two spots at this point. But USA travel has picked up quite a bit as well, going to see national parks, going out west over the summertime. Those are things that people are doing. Hawaii's, clicked back up to the top of the list where it had fallen, over the years to other types of travel.
All right, someone on the thread is asking if vaccines will be mandatory. I think we did touch on this, but if that's something you would, is that something that people are going to need? Like you mentioned, it depends on which country they are going to, correct?
That's correct. But I honestly, get your vaccine. That's what we're telling people. But come on, because the world will open up, and I see it, and it looks like it's going in that direction. That people who are vaccinated are going to have more opportunities to travel than those who aren't.
All right, Andrew Schultz is saying, I'm vaccinated and can't wait to go on a cruise. He's ready to go. Where would you go, Andrew? Where's a really good popular place to go pre-COVID, I guess, on cruises? Where people usually love to go?
Everywhere, Alaska, Europe, river cruising. Obviously, Caribbean is always a fan favorite.
Masks. Let's touch again about masks. Are masks going to be required on board?
So again, I think when cruising begins again, yes, I am pretty confident in the fact that just like we wear masks today in our everyday lives, we're going to have to wear it on board a ship until further notice. And, when we don't have to wear masks anymore in our everyday lives here in the States, I'm assuming the cruise lines will follow. However, there are cruise lines that are talking about it that are, there's a couple cruise lines that are requiring vaccinated only passengers. They're not allowing anybody else on board. Do you need a mask? So those are things that are being talked about right now.
All right, we have some comments here. Counting the minutes until I can get back on a cruise from Jules. Danielle says Aruba's a good place. Ana Carolina, Hawaii. Ashley, Lady Luck. I love the Bahamas, especially Nassau. So we got a lot of people waiting to go on these cruises.
Me too.
Hygiene, as far as like consistently wash your hands, hand sanitizers on cruise ships. How important is it to keep clean?
Just like your everyday lives, and they'll make sure there's stations all over the ship. And I got to tell you, they had it pre-COVID. There were hand washing stations and all kinds of things like that all over the ship pre-COVID, just to make sure, because they know people are in a contained area, and they, again, number one priority is to make sure that their passengers are healthy and safe, as well as the crew.
All right, we have another question from our here on Facebook Live. Brianna asks, heard they are around the world cruises. Are these really a thing?
Yes, absolutely. And here's the funny part. You're not even going to be able to go until 2024.
No.
Yeah, the world cruises have been so popular. The mature traveler has been vaccinated or has access to the vaccine already. And they realized that the world cruise was canceled 2 years in a row. So again, it's that revenge travel. It's that pent up demand. It's like, I'm going to rebook. And so 2022 and 2023 are pretty sold out unless somebody cancels. You'll be put on a wait list. So the pent up demand is real. And that's why I'm saying anyone who is looking to travel, end of year, beginning of, or anytime in 2022, get yourselves booked. You have to put a small deposit. And again, they're being very flexible with the cancellation policies.
All right, we have a comment. Joanne, can't wait. I'm booked and ready to go on several, she says. Michelle, there's a lot of people just tuning in right now. We're with Michelle Fee, CEO and founder of Cruise Planners. If you're just joining us, a lot of people are asking, when will cruises be back, set sail again? Just to reiterate, because we have folks that are just tuning in.
So, again, I said it was a $64,000 question. We just don't know. We're waiting for the CDC to give us the green light to go. All other modes of transportation are, back in business. I do feel like, and this is just my humble opinion, that the cruise industry has been unfairly focused on. And we are truly hoping that any day now they come through and start giving the cruise lines directions on the protocols that need to be completed before they can get back in the water.
Someone is asking about, one second here. Crystal Cruises is now sailing where? This is from Caitlin Katie Murphy Gardner.
Okay, they're going to start sailing in June, and they are sailing from Nassau, and they'll do some smaller islands, or in the Bahamas, and they're back in business. And they are one of the lines that you will need a vaccine in order to board their ship.
If a person did have COVID beforehand and now been vaccinated, will they be able to get on the ship?
I'm assuming so. The vaccination and the vaccine is that's your ticket. That's your golden ticket to start traveling. That's why we keep saying to our customers, get vaccinated.
What's one of your favorite cruises you've ever gone on, Michelle?
I always get that question. Here's my favorite answer. It's the one I'm on, right? I've never been on a bad cruise. So wherever I am with whomever I'm on with, I'm enjoying myself. So, I'm a grandmother. So sometimes when I take my kids on, one of those bigger fun ships, I'm excited and I enjoy myself with that. But then sometimes I go on maybe a little bit more of a luxury line with my husband and I, and we enjoy them as well. But I love cruising, and cruising the world is fabulous. It's one of those vacations that you feel like when you get there and unpack, you're on vacation the whole time. You don't have to repack, and you don't have to get your luggage out in front of your room at a certain time. It's like, when you're done touring for the day, you come back on the ship, you have your cocktail, and you're off to the next port of call.
Cocktails are fun.
Wait.
What about, for example, Disney cruises? They have a lot of hands-on interactive things. Do you expect things would possibly roll out differently? Cruise lines that are, family oriented with kids and such?
Yeah, I think, again, just like what's going on in our everyday lives, schools have opened, they've opened safely, especially here in Florida. So again, there's going to be protocols put in place. And, again, we don't know what all the little details are yet. I'm only hearing high level, but I assure you that they're not going to do anything that would, two things, put you, in a position of not being safe, or put you in a position of not really enjoying your cruise. So both of them are priorities.
Right on. Michelle, for, I guess, big takeaways for folks for during this chat, as we are awaiting for the CDC to give us a timeline when cruise can set sail, what would be 4 big takeaways?
Okay, book now, right now, soon as this ends. Number 2, make sure you're booking with a travel agent. They will help guide you. Number 3, make sure you're vaccinated. It's your golden ticket to travel. You said 4. I have to come up with 4.
The 3 or 4, or big takeaways. Just give it to me.
Revenge travel. There we go. Number 4 is revenge travel. Buy that vacation that you've had on your bucket list for years, because you haven't been going anywhere but your backyard for the past year and a half.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much for joining us here on this Facebook live chat. I really appreciate it. I hope we got to answer everyone's questions that they have regarding when cruise ships are going to go back to sail. Thank you so much for watching. Thank everyone. Thank you so much for putting your comments, your questions. Thank you so much. Be sure to click and like the channel, and also share it on your social media platforms on Facebook. Thank you so much, everybody. And I hope everyone has a great day today. Thank you so much.
Happy travels.